Welcome, everybody, to How to Raise, the weekly CA-free accredited program from the Philanthropy Mastermind series, brought to you through the generous sponsorship of our friends at DonorSearch. My name is Jay Frost. It's great to have you here today. If you're new to this party, welcome. And if this is an old hat for you, I'm glad to see you back. We won't be talking much about our friends at DonorSearch today unless our guest chooses to mention them for some reason. That's not for any lack of appreciation. This is the 10th season of this series, underwritten by the folks at DonorSearch, and you can see much of that programming along with a recording of today's show on their website at donorsearch.net under the resources tab. Check all that out there. I'll make sure you get a shout out to that in the chat later in the session today. And I do want to welcome everybody in the chat. I see that people are saying hello. If you haven't had a chance to do that, please join the party. It's a great place to get to know one another, have a sense about where everybody is from, whether they're around the country or around the world. I see at least one voice from Canada in the chat right now, just taking a quick look. So lots of good experience here that will add to the conversation, including in the Q&A. So please do utilize the Q&A as well. That's a great place for questions. Feel free to have a conversation in chat, Q&A for questions, so we don't miss anything throughout the presentation today. And today's episode, as you probably already know, is on Ask Without Fear, the essentials, how to ask for major gifts with confidence and clarity. You can probably see if you take a peek at the book sitting on my shelf behind me from the author, who is our presenter today, international leadership coach, fundraising trainer, just a wonderful person in our field, Marc Pitman, founder of Concord Leadership Group and of fundraisingcoach.com. He's been recognized by The Atlantic as one of 5 philanthropic blog fundraisers that you need to read. His latest book is not how to ask, although that book is one you need on your shelf. But another one, which you can probably see right there, The Surprising Gift of Doubt. Use uncertainty to become the exceptional leader you are meant to be, something we profiled recently in our companion series on Tuesdays, Front Lines of Social Good. He's also the executive director of the Nonprofit Academy, an advisory panel member at Rogare, the international think tank. He gives speeches around the world from, oh my gosh, Fundraising Summit in Mexico, trainings in New Zealand, AFP, and of course my personal favorite, the International Bowling Expo. I have not asked him about that. I will in the future. You can see him all over the place. Here he is, the wonderful Marc Pitman. Join me in welcoming Marc.
Thanks so much. Yeah, the International Bowling Expo was so much fun. And I get to do a version of Ask Without Fear for them as well. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for that kind intro, Jay. Good to be back. Love working with DonorSearch, and I love sharing what we can do to make fundraising not be scary. So if you would, in your chat, let me just ask, I'd love to know if you are, what your title is, if you think yourself as a fundraiser, if you think yourself as something else, board member, executive director, curious person, director of development. Okay. Thanks for getting it right in there, Amanda. That's awesome. Development associate. That was my first title, development associate. And I had been the third one in 3 years. Third one in 2 years, because people kept getting into the job, just freaking out that they accepted a fundraising job, and then they were just shocked that they had to ask for money. Grant writer, founder, and president. Wow, you're doing it all. That's your business card must expand and be an accordion one. CEO. Hey Jim, good to see you here. Fundraising consultant. Oh, good, Liz. Yeah. All right. So we have a good range here. What we're going to look at today is asking it through the lens of major gifts, because humans run foundations, human runs corporations, humans run other giving entities. And if we can learn to speak the dialect of humans, we can ask more effectively in all the other areas that we do. You'll also see, I'll share a couple of tips on fundraising letters, because there is something about speaking the dialect of donors that really is clearer in letters than it is in our conversations. And so I'll illustrate that as well. But for all of you that have so kindly participated already in the chat, when you think of asking somebody for money, do you look like shocked like this little kid? Like, What? I have to do what? A lot of people, when I do this with boards, a lot of people get really, really scared and they're kind of chagrined that their executive director or development director said, we're going to have a retreat on fundraising. And we had Marc Pitman come in and do it. And like, that's the last thing I'd rather do. I'd rather watch paint dry than learn this. But I really think fundraising is an incredible privilege. Fundraising has this ability to make the assets that people spend time earning. Like they're 40, 60, 80 hours a week. They're 6 decades of life, 7 decades. And we get to, as fundraisers, connect them with their values. So often we get working in something, and our work kind of takes us away from what we value. There's this kind of, we have mortgages to pay, bills to take care of, obligations we have to do. And it's the fundraiser who stands in the middle and is able to say, all that stuff that you're doing over here can still be invested in your values. And when, so the analogy I like to give is a donor is like a plug, and the fundraiser is getting to walk up and down the wall of our nonprofit and figure out what's the right outlet for this plug to fit into. There are so many different things that people can fund in our organizations, and there are so many different shapes of outlets. Like there's the utility outlet here, or there's this smiley face outlet. I'm not sure what that is, but sometimes how many people, again, which using chat, how many people, or the chat feature, not chat GPT, how many people had an outlet like this in an old house that didn't have the fatter side on it? They just had the two-prong outlet with the two equal prongs. Just put a yes or a Y. Okay, me, great. Um, do you remember what happens when you take one of the newer plugs that have the grounded fat edge and shove it into that? Does it work? Doesn't fit? No. Okay. You guys maybe gave up a little bit too soon. For me, it worked. I could shove it in, but it wasn't comfortable because it like they're saying you're right, it does not fit. And we try to do that with donors at times. We are so excited about the cause we're doing or the deadline that we have coming up or something that's going on that we're not listening to our donors. And so we take the plug of our donor and try to jam it into something that is interesting to us, not to them. Now, one of the things I want to get square away right in the beginning of our time together is that donors are a wonderful, valued part of a nonprofit community. Um, I'm a Gen Xer. It was sort of like the sugar cereal is part of this nutritious breakfast, and there was all these other things like fruit and vegetables and fiber and stuff. Donors, they're not sugar cereal, but donors aren't directing our nonprofit. So we're not trying to center our nonprofit around donors. We're trying to involve them into the conversation. And so when we're trying to find the outlet that fits them, we're not looking to create an outlet for them. An example I had when I worked at a hospital was somebody wanted to build a gazebo in for a piece of lawn where his relative was in the one particular patient room and needed to look at something other than the building out next door. So they wanted a gazebo and they thought it would be nice and all this. Fortunately, we had a strong leadership. We had a good vision. We had a strategic plan and good mission. And I was able to tell the donor, that is wonderful. We love treating patients well and creating a great healing atmosphere. A gazebo isn't in our plans. Here's some of the things that we are doing. Would one of these fit till now, or would you like to wait until we happen to have a gazebo project in the future? So I'm not saying that we need to create whatever the donor is listening. We're not listening to change our mission or have mission creep, but we have so many different ways that we can help donors connect with our organizations. And part of the joy of fundraising is just kind of introducing them to the different aspects of what we do and seeing which one's the right fit. And when we do, it's joy. How many people here, have anybody here asked somebody for more money than they expected or they felt comfortable asking for and had the donor's eyes light up with joy? Just again, put yes or no in the chat. Liz, yes, yes, with exclamation marks, Jim. Yeah, of course you have. I love asking this particularly with boards because there's usually a couple of the board members that have had that experience, and it's true. You ask somebody, "Hey, I don't know if this is for you, but I'd like to consider you to. I'd like to ask if you'd consider a gift of $100,000 to this campaign. And their eyes light up with joy, like, oh my goodness, I could do that. I get to do that. Many people haven't had that experience yet. I hope that like on the vibes of Jim and Liz, that you would be at least open by the end of our time together to seeing that this is a possibility, that you're actually giving something of value to donors, something that they will bring joy to their life and cause that replenishment and that happiness as they can see their values being actively invested in by their work and their activity. One time when I was doing this, a 3-hour version of this, a board member had come in 2 hours late. So she didn't participate in my pre-board interviews, nor did she show up on time. She came in 2 minutes late, 2 hours late to a 3-hour training. And so I was already on the ask, and she got really activated. Some might say triggered, because she had an abusive experience with a fundraiser. A fundraiser had walked into her house, seen a piece of art on the wall, and basically held her hostage until she said she would give money, more or less, is the way she described it. He was rude, belligerent, and that is not what I was saying at all. We had 2 hours of building the foundation before that, but she just took whatever her baggage was that she brought into the room and unleashed it and melted down for the final hour of our board meeting. So what I did on this is I've started now introducing transactional analysis, an Eric Berne concept that I think really helps us with fundraising, because money gets to our emotions and it gets to our identity. It gets to the messages we were taught by our family and our culture and maybe our faith traditions about what money is and if it's good or bad or filthy or desirable. So what I like about Eric Berne's perspective is he said that all of us show up in an interaction with 3 different potential ego states. We have an ego state of parent, an ego state of adult, and an ego state of child. The person that we're talking to also shows up with those 3 different ego states. Now, as much as we'd want to, we can't control what the other person comes to us with, but we can try to center ourselves into the adult ego state and try to speak to the adult and the other person. The types of fundraising that are not effective are if you're coming from your child ego state. That often looks like could I please have my allowance, or please, sir, could I have some more, sort of begging. That is not a desirable place to come at from fundraising, although it can feel like that. It can feel like the power differential of donors having the wealth. We need to make payroll. They easily seem to have the assets to help us make payroll. Why aren't they giving to us? And if you look at some fundraising letters, it's almost like the kid in Walmart 2 aisles over that's throwing a tantrum because they didn't get the cookies they wanted. I mean, some of our direct mail is not really good. This is not a desirable ego state to show up in. The other one that is equally not desirable is the parent to child. This is where you have the dominance and you are telling the donor what to do. You need to be clear in your ask and clear in what you're inviting your donor to do. But you might be speaking out of the parent ego state if you start shooting on your donor. You should give big gifts to just 2 or 3 organizations, or you should give lots of gifts to a lot of organizations, or you should give locally, not internationally, or equally, you should give internationally, not locally. When you're telling a donor how they should use their money, you're probably coming from that parental ego state, which is not, nobody likes to be shitted on. Nobody likes to have somebody else telling them how to live their life. And that's not our role, fortunately, as a fundraiser. In whatever capacity of fundraising that we're doing, we're really trying, we have a great cause that's worthy of investment and worthy of donations to. Great outcomes. We're inviting someone to be part of those outcomes. And we are presenting that as clearly and as cleanly as we can to this other person, hoping to connect with that adult who will make their decision and their choice clearly. That's what I'm going to be talking about. And that's what the Get Real system shows you. Get Real, as I said before, I'm a Gen Xer, so I heard real a lot growing up. And I decided to use that as my acronym because when I got into fundraising 30 years ago now, I was told that for major gifts, it's cultivate, solicit, steward. You cultivate a gift, you solicit the gift, and you steward the gift. And that was okay and true. There's truth to that. But I had one guy come call me for fundraising coaching, and he called me to be his fundraising coach. He had two successful organizations. He had a third one that he was starting. I asked him, how much you're trying to raise? It took him 20 minutes of verbally processing to be able to figure out how much he was trying to raise. He didn't know. So that's why the research stage is the first stage in the system that I teach. We research our project. We research how much it's going to cost. We research who the people are that we can invite to that. And then we engage them. Engaging is one of the steps that we most lose in fundraising. We usually try to skip right to the ask without even finding out what the donor's interested in or if we should be asking them at all. There are some people that just aren't generous. There are some people that aren't a good fit for us, and it's okay to move on. But then a clear ask, and you'll see that there's a dollar sign in this ask because it is respectful to ask for a clear dollar amount. It is one of the highest levels of respect you can offer a donor. Would you support us? Would you contribute? Those aren't helpful to a donor because they don't know what you mean. You might be thinking 25,000 and they might be thinking 250. Is that helpful? So you're being clear with them of what you're hoping that they'd consider is something that gives them a starting point to have a conversation with you about. And then loving. We as a sector still do this really poorly on it for our donors. I think there's probably a number of reasons for it, but we know we do this poorly because year after year, our donor retention is somewhere around 40%. It's even worse for first-time gifts. It's like 19%. For what that means is if you had a list of 10 donors that gave for their first time last year, you could cross out the names of 8 of them. They're not giving again. You take a black Sharpie and just knock their names out. Anybody in business knows, and I'm not a big nonprofits need to run like a business, but in business, your board members will know that they need to retain customers because it's a lot cheaper to keep a building relationship than it is to start a relationship. It's a lot easier to continue nurturing a relationship than it is to create a new one. And that's where the love step comes in, where we show the donor, your gift had this impact. Thank you. Penelope Burke over the years has done studies with donors who asked first-time donors why they never made a second gift. One of the reasons is they died. And so I don't know how she asked them, but that death is one of the reasons. And that's, as far as I know, you're not going to get a gift from a person who's passed. That's unless it's a planned gift. And then, that's a different seminar. But the other 4 in the top 5 were some version of, I didn't even know my gift mattered. I didn't get a receipt. I didn't get a tax credit. I never got a thank you. I never even knew that they actually needed it. Those are all things that are in our control. And that's where the love step comes in. What becomes wonderful about this is the virtuous circle. It's virtual, but it's also virtuous. As you research and engage people, you get clearer on the ask. And as you get clearer on the engaging and the asking, you know how to thank people a lot better and a lot more effectively in a dialect that they understand. And then you can figure out like how they can become part of your research and expanding your database so that they may be bringing in their friends because they're loving the impact that they're being able to make through your organization. The other thing that this shows is it helps your donors see you're not treating them like an ATM. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes the CFOs at some of our organizations or the executive directors, no offense, those are all tough positions, tend to look at fundraising as though it's invoiceable, like a bill that we can just charge donors and we should have a regular monthly income from. That hasn't been my experience in 30 years of fundraising. There seems to be seasonality to it. There's things that you can do within your organization to try to even out that flow because people do give throughout the year. They don't just give in the last quarter of the year, but we have trained people to give in the last quarter. And so a lot of the times I had one colleague that said a board member told her, yeah, you don't really work for 11 months, but boy, that 12th month, you really make it happen. That's not true. She works really hard all 12 months so that the 12th month meets the goal. And what we don't want to do with our communications is treat a donor like we're looking to find the button to poke so that they just start spewing out money. We want them to know that they are important. We are interested in their wallet, but we're also interested in their humanity. them as a human being. And that's why I love major gifts, because it allows you that privilege of being able to spend a little bit more time with people in a more direct one-on-one way than in the mass way. I think direct mail is still incredibly important. Online giving is important, but this major gifts has a special way where you can tell them, we're interested in who you are and kind of what your values are, and exploring to see where they intersect with what we're doing. So let's talk about research. The first thing you have to do, just like I told that person previously, is that you need to know how much you're trying to raise and what you're trying to raise it for. Let me know in the chat with a why or an N. Have you been in a capital campaign before? You'll hear me talk about capital campaigns. This is not about capital campaigns. This is about raising money. 3. Okay, Amanda. Yeah. That's one of the jokes that I don't know if it's still there in nonprofits, but I heard over my years is many nonprofits are in one stage of a campaign. They're either ending their campaign, they're starting their next one, or they're in the middle of one. But this major gift stuff works on an annual basis as well. Figuring out in a campaign, you do a case statement, which is sort of your history, what the success is that's caused a problem, what's that problem now, why this campaign will fix it, and then itemizing the different parts of the campaign, different parts of a building, different programs, different parts of the endowment or the size of the endowment, and you start having dollar amounts attached to those. From that can help you as a person that's doing the asking figure out, oh, it's going to cost this much for us to raise. Then you're ready to say, who are the people we can go to help us raise it? You'll probably look in your database. You'll probably look at the people that have given to you before. There are other ways to look at people in your neighborhood, or I almost started singing Mr. Rogers, who are the people in your neighborhood? There are other things that you can do to try to expand that, but by and large, the unfortunate truth of expanding your database is you go with the people you know and you ask them who they know. And then you ask those people who they know, and your circle keeps widening. It's the best part about that is it's sustainable, and it's growth oriented, and it's got integrity and honesty in it. The annoying part is it takes time. But once you start having however big your list is, you can put your dollar amount through a thing I call the gift range calculator. This is free for everybody to use. And for the sake of this conversation, I put $100,000 in because the math works out. So you can see the thought behind it. We've studied for over a century, we've studied successful campaigns, and we know that every successful campaign has a gift that's 10 to 25% of the total goal, another gift that's 7.5 to 15%, a couple gifts that are 5 to 10%. So I'll show you how that works in this calculator. First of all, if you're trying to raise $100,000, you don't go to 10 people and ask for $10,000. That's just not mathematically, you're going to leave money on the table if you do that. And there are going to be some people that want to be part of the campaign that could give a smaller amount, but not the 10,000. You might communicate it that way, but you should still be planning on having some people that you can ask the 10 to 25%, which is $25,000. Now, the reason I err on the side of 25,000 instead of saying 10 to 25 is that donors negotiate down. They don't negotiate up. So if you're going to ask for 25,000, it helps you to be able to, they may say, maybe could I give 20 or 15? And that's still within the range. If you ask for 10, they're not going to say, can I give 25? And then the rest of this, the calculator shows you how many prospects. Various studies I've seen say you need 3 to 5 prospects for each gift. So I put 5 to be more conservative. The next one is 7.5 to 15%. You need a gift for that, 5 prospects for there. Another gift is 5 to 10%. You need 2 gifts, so 10 prospects. Now, this is just a spreadsheet. This is a tool. This is something that if a board member says we need to raise $1 million, instead of saying, what are you, nuts? You could pull this out and say, great, who are the 5 people we know that could give $250,000 to that? You can build on their enthusiasm and their excitement. This is also something you can use in an ask. You could print this out and say, hey, look, we're trying to raise $100,000. Here's the path that we're thinking we're getting there. The donor all of a sudden feels relief. Oh, good, you're not asking me to give it all. And you're able to then also say the specific dollar amount. If you still feel uncomfortable with that, you could hover your pen over, like, would you consider giving in this range here? And that at least gives them a specific dollar that you're thinking of. Now, I know some of you are also much more detail oriented than I am and are like, wait a minute, Mark, if you do this exactly, if you do all, 49 gifts, if it all mathematically works out, you're going to raise more than $100,000. And I'd ask you, is that a problem? Successful campaigns often get people giving to them at the end because they realize, oh, this is going to go somewhere. We're actually going to complete this. This is great. And you'll see that there's also on the bottom construction, HR, insurance costs tend to go up. So we might as well plan for that. Donor appreciation and stewardship. I was in one campaign where we had to buy benches, and the people that were in charge of benches tried to get them at a box store. Well, those benches fell apart really quickly. You have to buy a bench that's going to stand around for a while. So those things take costs, and you're not going to say part of our fundraising plan is that we're going to really thank you. We're going to thank you really well. People, that just isn't a compelling fundraising ask typically. And it's always better to raise more money than you need. If it's a campaign, you might be able to do some extra things with it. If it's your annual fund, you might be able to upgrade some of your equipment, your computer equipment, or some of that deferred maintenance that's been sitting on your deferred maintenance list. Another research stage that you can do is talking about donors with donors. Your board is a perfect example of this. I call it the CPI index. You have a spreadsheet, a simple spreadsheet, where you have a donor's name, and then C, P, and I for columns. You total up those points, and you have notes. C is capacity. Are they wealthy? Does it seem like they have money that they can give? P is philanthropy. Are they generous? Because there are some wealthy people who just aren't generous. Generosity is usually sparked by their family tradition or their faith tradition, and it's often really impossible to single-handedly make someone more generous. And then interest. This is an interesting one because it can split two ways. It could be, are they interested in general in what we do? Like, are they interested in historic preservation or in, homelessness, home insecurity or food insecurity or something like that? Or are they interested specifically in our nonprofit? Those two interests are both legitimate. And then you can sit down with a board, you can split them up. You fill in all the names, the prospect names you're interested in, and the people that you may not know that you'd like to get to know. And then you just ask them to rate these people on these 1 to 5, 5 being high. I love the objectivity. People seem to respond well to, I'm not gossiping about my friends, I'm just rating them. And the notes section, they can jot down some notes that they may know about the people. You can also sit one-on-one with people, with your board member. I've done this a number of times. I'll have a copy. The board member has a copy. I'll write their name on the corner of each. And they'll go through the list, and I'll also take notes because they don't always pick up on the things that I'm picking up that they're saying. A couple things that happens is when you know people that know things about certain people on your list, most people are going to say, I don't know anybody on this list. I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. But when you start seeing who they do know, they may be the right person to help you go make that ask. And it'll also help you figure out prioritizing who you go to first. If anybody scores over a 12, you should be out there visiting right away. The big part on research is you don't want to get stuck here. Zig Ziglar used to say, avoid paralysis by analysis. And that would be big here. You don't need to know all of it. You don't even need to know people's wealth to make a successful ask. But it can be confidence instilling for yourself to know about your donors. You do need to know about your cause, and you do need to know why you're asking. But there is some due diligence on your donors is good, but I'll give you the exact script so that you can ask for any amount you want to, and it won't offend the donor even if it's way too high. But before we get there, we need to engage. So just quickly on engaging, this is where you get to know the donor. This is where you get to figure out, are they interested in stuff that we do? Are they interested in something else? I had a donor once ask me, who's funding the plumbing in the new building? I had never been asked that before. It turns out he was a plumbing supply contractor. He didn't want to give in kind. He wanted to give money, and he wanted his name on the plumbing. So I was able to find out that information for him. But had I engaged more, I might have found out that was something of interest to him. I just hadn't asked that question before. I talked to him more about his class year and some other things instead. Engaging is hey, I'd love to get together with a cup of coffee and talk. And that's where you have the honesty and integrity. Honesty and integrity are the best fundraising tools. The integrity of saying, I just want to talk, and the honesty of not having a secret ask in the back pocket. You should be prepared if they say in the conversation, what can I do to help? You could say, I'm sorry, I wasn't here to ask you this time, but you seem really excited. Could I? Or should I come back to you in 2 weeks? It's sort of like asking you don't ask your kid, you want to go to bed? If you have kids, you ask them, if you've ever been a kid or have kids, you're not asked, do you want to go to bed? It's, do you want to go to bed at 7 or 7:30? You're giving two yes options. The big thing I think with engaging is knowing how to manage this all. And there was a book called It's Not Just About the Money by Richard Perry and Jeff Schreifels that has unlocked this for me in a way that was so helpful. The typical major gift officer can take about 125 to 150 assignments if they're doing no direct mail, no events, nothing. How do you know, how do you not come to every month and just wonder, what am I doing with my time? If you're a CEO or executive director, you might only have 25% of your time for fundraising. And so that, maybe it's 30 people. And it can just become overwhelming to know, what do I do each time? And what I love about this spreadsheet is that you start with the donor's name, how much you want to ask them for, which is often, if you're starting this for the first time, it's often what they gave last year, just to put in a placeholder. And then what month do you think you want to ask them? You go on the spreadsheet and then you put the ask in the month, and you go back the month before. And I always put secure the solicitation appointment, because it's going to take 6 to 12, usually 10 to 12 attempts to reach people. People aren't ignoring you. They're just really busy. And it's part of our job is to continue reaching out to them until they tell us no. Too often we say, oh, I left a voicemail and I sent an email, silence, they're probably not interested. No, that's where you're taking the parent again. They haven't told you they're not interested. How dare you make a decision for them? Our job is to do due diligence and continuing to try to connect with them. And with this, you can then set different things in the different months. What are things that they need to know before they ask that we can do? What are thank yous that we can have afterwards? Some of them, like if you look in November, some of them could be, what are things that we're already sending out that will count as a touch this month? Some of the people you may not want to have monthly touches for, maybe they'll only be like every other month. But the peace of mind that this gives of when you get to November and you look down, okay, what are the most important things I need to be doing in my major gifts? You have it all here on just a simple spreadsheet. With coaching clients, this is where I just put a Google Doc up, and it's private to us, the three of us, myself and that person or one other person in the organization, and we just look it over. There's a lot more to unlock about that. If you have questions about that, let me know. But I want to get to the main event. Let's talk about the ask. How do you know when it's time to ask? It's on your dashboard. This is the time that you figured you're going to ask them. They may have told you this is when they want to ask, or this is when with your workflow, this is a good time to ask. It could be a deadline that's coming up. It could be any number of things that cause this time to be the right time. As I promised, when it comes to asking, clarity is really important. And there's so many counterintuitive things in fundraising. One of them is what I'll teach you right here. I call it the red pen treatment. Get a red pen Sharpie and a black Sharpie, and take out your last fundraising letter and circle all the we's, ours, and us's, all the references to your nonprofit in red, because those have been proven through study to reduce your fundraising results. And then take the black marker, and all the times you say you, yours, and your to the donor, circle those, because those put your fundraising in the black. I call this weeding your email. You're weeding out all the we references. Donors aren't stupid. They saw the logo on your envelope. They saw the logo on your letterhead. They know who you are. And as you can say, remove yourself in between and connect the donor to the impact, or invite the donor's action to make this impact happen or help solve this problem. That's when you're doing your fundraising much more effectively. With my clients, it's often 37 we's in a letter and 7 you's. That's not what we want. Then the 7 you's are usually way down at the bottom saying, will you help us in our quest to raise these funds and with your gift to our campaign? I mean, it's all awful. Take those we's out, and then you'll have a much more digestible letter that a donor can understand quickly and realize, oh, my gift can make this impact happen. If you're calling to set up the appointment, if the ask is there, I like to be honest and say, I'm going to be talking to you about your support of this project. I'd like to set up a time that we can meet. Trying not to get in the ask on the phone, because In-person meetings still seem to have more effect than if you had to do in priorities. Trying to get an in-person meeting for a major gift is better. Then the next best is a Zoom call. After that is a phone call, and then a letter. I've done major gifts through letters before, totally fine. And some donors don't want to be reached out to. But they'll respond quickly to a letter. And part of your engaging and part of the asking is learning what is the right mechanism to connect with each donor that we're talking to. Then, if you can go in pairs, it's great, especially if you're a volunteer, because let me know in the chat if this has happened to you. You've ever gone to you intended to ask somebody for money. You told them you're going to ask them for money, and you got there and you chickened out and you called it, the time wasn't right when you were leaving away, when you explained it to somebody else why you drove away without making an ask. Just put a yes or no. And there's no shame in this. We've all done it, I think. But that if you go in pairs, you're not going to have that experience of chickening out as much because each of you know why you're there and you're going to want to hold each other accountable and make the ask. But you also know you see different things. And so when you're debriefing, you can also just share. Did you see how he responded when you asked them that? Or did you see how she lit up when you mentioned this other thing? And that can help you as you move forward in other asks and stewarding that relationship. I would not get hung up on going in pairs. Fundraisers raise funds. They don't raise friends. No nonprofit has hired people because they need more friends. Nonprofits hire fundraisers to raise funds, to raise money to help support the operations or the projects or pay the staff and do all the great things that the nonprofit does. So I would err on the side of raising funds, not on the side of going in pairs. I have a soapbox there, as you can tell. So let's talk about actually making the ask. When you get there, when you've talked to them, you're sharing with them, you're talking about the project, and it gets to the ask part, I like to give the direct dollar amount and I like to give the high dollar amount. In this example, it would be instead of saying, would you give $84 a month? I'd want to ask, would you give $1,000 a year? Would you consider that? I want them to get the deer in the headlights look of, I'm asking you to prioritize our organization. I have a colleague I worked with for years, John Donovan. He does it the other way. He does it in the increments, and he has success too. So your mileage may vary on this, but definitely consider asking high. And I would practice this beforehand. Before you even get there, I consider, hey, I'd like to ask you to, consider a gift of $100,000. Would you consider a gift of $100,000? I don't know if this is for you, but would $100,000 be the right ask? And then you might hear yourself also saying, would, 250,000 or would $100,000 to 250. Anyways, you might find yourself splitting up $25,000 a quarter. Would that be helpful? There may be, you'll find the right way to say it and you'll say it with more confidence when it comes to the donor. And you just heard all those phrases that I used. I love asking, would you consider a gift of specific dollar amount to this? And my favorite ask is the one with total honesty of, I don't even know if this is in the ballpark, but would you consider a gift of $100,000 to this? You're no longer, in my early asks, I would be very confident in the number that I asked, and it would show. And it would cause the donor to wonder, why did you ask that specific amount? What in my record, or what did you read about me, or what research did you do about me? And as much as we love DonorSearch and the work that they do, we don't want people asking us about the search that we did on them. We want them asking us about the cause that we're asking for money for. And so having this, hey, I have no idea if this is even the right ask or if this is in the ballpark, but would you consider a gift of 250,000 or for you, maybe 1,000? I mean, it doesn't, I'm using a lot of dollars, there's a lot of zeros, but could be, I don't even know if this is the right ask, but would you consider a gift of $1,000 this year? Then they're talking about if it's the right ask or not. And then you can have all the answers to that, which is just so much fun. That's a conversation that you have after that. So you ask the specific dollar amount. Would you give $100,000 to this? What do you do next? Let me know in the chat. You shut up, fool. As a verbal extrovert, I've had to say, be quiet. I had to have Mr. T in my head because it's about respecting the donor. You've just asked them to take action. They need to figure out is this an action I want to take? Some people process quickly. Some people process more more measuredly. They take more time to process. And so when you are quiet, thank you, Jody. Silence. That's so true. Um, you will be knowing by your quietness is allowing them to feel to process. You'll know when they're done processing because they'll be the first to speak. Some of us make it a game. Like, I wonder how long this will take. Like, I'm gonna out silence them. That made me more comfortable with the silence. But it's really being invitational in this. Hey, I don't know if this is for you. Would you consider a gift of $100,000 to this? You've asked a question and you're just waiting for a response. And they're going to be thinking about, do I have the money in the account now? Do I have, what will my business partner say? What will my spouse say or partner say? There are all the different things that they have to go through. And then you can answer, you can have the conversation with them about that. The three reasons, if they say yes, you're excited. If they say no, then you figure out the reasons for the no. It's either the price, the amount is too much or too wrong is wrong. The project is wrong, and then you can, oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was something you were interested in, or the timing is wrong. I had one donor didn't realize that she could give annually. Like that was just not part of her knowledge. And so when she found out she could give $2,500 a year, 2 years in a row and reach the 5,000 level, that was something that was really interesting to her. That conversation after the ask is crucial. This is where the magic happens. This is where you get to just see the lights go on. Now, often you don't have a first yes. Often there's a conversation. I'm just going to put this on here for you all to take a screenshot of. It's an exercise I love working through with staffs or boards because the fear of what do I say if the donor doesn't say yes is real. And it feels like there's a million different things and I have to know everything before I can even get in front of a donor. The good news is you don't. There are usually only 7 or 10 themes. And so what I work with teams to do is I say, okay, everybody gets a stack of Post-it notes and you think about asking for more money than you ever felt comfortable asking. And you write down like, what's the scariest thing that they'll say? And you write it down on the Post-it note and then you rip it off and you put it on the table and you write down another thing that's scary. You rip that off. And then you start grouping them on the wall. But you put them up on the wall, and then a few people start grouping them into themes. It's great to do just before lunch because people can figure out if the themes are similar. And there's usually only 7 or 10 problems that you have to address. And if you're doing it in a group of staff and board members, there are people in the room that have had the experience of addressing that issue before. So you also get the confidence of seeing one of your colleagues, oh, they faced this and it didn't stop people from giving. That's wonderful. So that hopefully that handling objections is something that will be helpful for you as well. And then we're all ready to the love stage. I know there's so much more we could talk about. Definitely want to leave some room for questions and answers, but or at least questions. And hopefully, since the answers are dependent on me, hopefully answers. The love stage is what makes this all worthwhile in so many ways. The love stage is where you get to show the donor you made a good choice in giving to this cause. And again, this is where systemic inequity can be reinforced negatively, and we don't want to do that. We're not saying, donors, you are amazing superheroes in that you helped this poor slob do something, and these people couldn't have done it without your help. No, we're saying, donors, you are generous, wonderful people. And for humanity, for millennia, we have had generous people that have had different resources, share resources, and help people. The way we do that is similar. The way we communicate that in print, and it's usually in print, every 90 days, you get an opportunity to let a donor know that their gift made a difference. You send it every donor impact report 4 times a year. And it's usually just 3 stories, maybe a story of one person being impacted, and then maybe a story of another person or a program. And then the last story would be great if it's a donor profile. And then there's a little note from the executive director saying, hey, look at these 3 stories. You'll learn about this, and you'll see how you're gifted that, and you'll see why this donor joins you in giving to this organization. This is the stage that is worth any investment that you can give it, because this is where you get to keep your donors over long term. The reason love, I hesitated with love because it's really love, like, or live. It's not just love. Some people you're going to really enjoy, some people you're going to like, and some people you're not going to enjoy at all. But the business is more, this is all about relationships, and people are worth more, inestimably more than whatever gift they can give you. So we as humans need to at least acknowledge their inherent worth of you're a human being, you're choosing not to give to us right now. It may frustrate me, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily a bad person. And most of our communities and donor bases, we need to keep those relationships somehow. So if you can handle a no well, you put yourself on the short list for the nonprofit or for the donor, because many donors have the experience of saying, no, I don't want to give to this. And it's radio silence from the nonprofit after that. Or there's animosity from the nonprofit. And generous people often feel uncomfortable saying no. So it's not that they like saying no, it may be just circumstances. If you say that, respect that and say, hey, great, could we keep communicating with you? Is that, would you mind if you still get the newsletters and stuff? That kind of no can bring them back a lot quicker. We've often found also that a no is 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, a no for now. It's not a no forever. So if you have a no, we have found it takes about 18 months. And the experience, cumulative experience that of the people I've worked with and my own experience in fundraising, a no now, 18 months from now, they may be ready to give again. So even the most vociferous no can be, I wouldn't, yeah, just know that it's not at the end necessarily and look for ways that you can still re-engage that person. Hopefully, and I hope you can get out your phones because I've got a QR code. I want you to give feedback for DonorSearch and me on this session. But hopefully you can see that this whole research, this whole Get Real thing makes it so that it demystifies fundraising and it makes it so it's humans helping humans and it doesn't have to be scary, especially if you practice the scary parts over. It becomes much more normal to say. So if you research what you're asking for and then who you're asking, and you engage with them a little bit. A lot of nonprofits like to skip that stage because they want to go straight to the ask. But if you get to know them a little bit, it doesn't have to take long. It could be just a quick call. It could be asking for advice. People love giving advice, and it helps us as nonprofits to hear how people are thinking. So an ask for advice could be the engage step for you. And then an ask with the kindness of a clear dollar amount, letting the donor figure out if that's right, and then helping the donor see how they might be able to do that if they don't see a path for that right away. And then showing them, hey, it was a good investment. You made a good choice. So that when you ask them again, you can say, remember that good choice you made before? Want to do it again? That's how you ask without fear. I'd love to give you the 21 ways for board members to engage with their nonprofits fundraising. This has become a standard part of some board orientations where they take this booklet and they say, the first one says, make your own gift. And then there are 20 other ways that they could support the nonprofit. So if you scan this QR code, there's a few quick questions about how valuable, if this session was valuable, and then you'll get a PDF emailed to you of this. If you're doing this live, if you're watching this as a recording, the QR code may lead to something else in the future. So to get the ebook, you can also go to fundraisingcoach.com/subscribe, and you'll be able to get that and get the Ask Without Fear newsletter. Jay, we're done. I'm going to leave this up for a second. Were there Q&As, and what are questions that people have? We have a few minutes still here.
I'm looking for that now, and I'm also putting that link in the chat in case people want to grab it that way.
You rock. Thanks for putting the gift range calculator in there too.
Hopefully that took. Yes, I put that in earlier, so that the range calculator is there, and now you can see in the chat. Fundraisingcoach.com/subscribe. If you, for some reason, you're not having success with that QR code. By the way, everybody, there is a survey for this session afterwards. So in addition to getting this stuff from Marc, I really encourage you to participate in that. Again, get that through the chat if you can't grab a QR code. Please do fill out the survey. It'll take you about 15 seconds to the conclusion, so we'll know what you want to see and hear for the rest of the year and into our 11th season of this series starting next year. So let me see if there's one question that's popped up so far from Jody, who says that they would like suggestions on how to handle your peer leadership team members think your office donor who think your office and donors are ATMs.
Oh my goodness. So many different ways that we could go. Um, Tell me more if you could in the chat, maybe just is it the entitlement? They just think donors owe them because they're doing good work. Part of what I like to do is when people ask me a question, I try to answer with a question because I want to hear more. So I guess I just did it too. Sorry, Jay. Part of it though is with the peers. You can ask them to I see that you put something in there, Jim. To ask them also, what's your experience in giving? How do you like it when people come to you assuming that you're entitled? How do you like it when the public radio says, do your part? How does that make you feel? Does it make you put you on the defensive or does it make you feel inclined to reach into your pocket?
Oh, and we do have a follow-up from Jody.
Yeah, okay, great. Go for it.
My office is a foundation for an organization. My peers show up to my office asking for funding. Can't you just find someone? That's the question.
Oh, that's a great question. So this is where having the strong the mission statement and strategic plan and processes, you're not making friends necessarily because people just they think you're the cash cow, you're the ATM. But if there are procedures in place, and this is where the board can be the bad guys. If it's just you, I was a foundation that supported an organization, and so I had my own board and a CEO that oversaw both, and so those were helpful buffers where I could say, oh, that's so good. We have a process for this. And that doesn't seem to be in our strategic plan this year. And then there's also the problem of people that want to do their own rogue fundraising, which is also helping them. And part of it is helping the staff know this is how we generate revenue. So come to us if you're thinking, and that's where you might be able to say, thank you for coming to me.
And speaking
Yeah.
of coming to you, and hopefully they will come to her. She mentioned that it doesn't necessarily sink in that she has
Yeah.
experience, but it doesn't. But I think you advised on that. But for people who want to just learn more about your work, Mark, I mean, can you share a URL or something so we can make?
Oh, fundraisingcoach.com has 20 years of top fundraising research stuff on there. There's a lot of, I'm sorry that the link didn't seem to be clickable with Zoom, but fundraisingcoach.com is where there's blogs and how-to articles and all sorts of good stuff there.
We do have that question from Jim, and then we have one from Rory after that.
Okay, so in a quarterly e-donor update, do you recommend doing a specific ask or asking highlight your work? Yeah, I don't recommend quarterly updates. I recommend print ones. So I'm not sure I agree with the premise of the question, Jim, but if you're doing an quarterly one, I know in print what the people that do the print donor newsletters should say is that the lower third of your back page can be an ask. It can be a revenue producing publication because donors love giving after they just see how great their gift was. So I would say test it. I think that's the thing. I used to say, and we've worked together or been in circles for a while. You may have used to hear me say, thank yous or thank yous don't make an ask. That has shifted. And what donor behavior studies have shown is that sometimes making an ask in the midst of a thank you isn't switching the game, but it's actually helping show a donor another way that they could continue the good feelings that they're already having. So I'd put it at the bottom. I wouldn't make it the highlight. I'd make the impact the highlight, but it's worth testing for sure.
And why print versus e-media?
Print, well, first of all, email, if you only have a 30% open rate, 7 out of 10 people aren't seeing your email. So already you're in a losing proposition, like your donors aren't getting it. And even your 30% open rate could be false positives because of privacy filters that are trying to protect inboxes from getting malware. So The print is the last studies I've seen show that it's maybe 12% of gifts are given online, philanthropic dollars, maybe 13. That still means that there's like 87% that isn't. And so print also has a way of sticking around. Our donors, major donors tend to be 45 and older, and they tend to, the older we get, the more we tend to keep paper around. So there's that benefit. Plus, we can give that to our friends, and it becomes leave behinds that we can use in other meetings that we're doing as a nonprofit. So there's a lot of different good ways to work with print.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then Rory had said, my organization runs on our own programs and is also a re-granter, similar to a community foundation. Some of our
Yeah.
donors give restricted gifts, for example, directed to specific organizations, and that's been the case for several years. Any advice on getting those donors to shift their thinking and expand their giving to include a gift to us as well?
Hmm. The challenge with that, good question, very good question. The challenge with that is it could feel like a bait and switch. You've been asking me to give to this specific thing, and now you want some too. Um, I think the best way to do that would be to find people that are already giving to the foundation as well. Particularly if you have a donor profile that you can do on your newsletter, highlight those. The behavior that we want to see repeated, if we can highlight it, it helps people see, oh, people like me do things like this. Um, Famous Seth Godin line. So I would think about who are the people that we know that are already doing the behavior we want to see and talking to them. What, can I hear your story? What made the connection for you? Ask their advice. How did you make the connection that we could also receive donations and that was helpful? And then you'll learn some of the language that was valuable to them. You ask their permission to share their story, and then both when you're talking to other donors, you could just say, "Hey, look, I was just talking to this couple over here. They had no idea that they could give to us as well, and they actually love that they can give directed and general. Is that something we could talk about with you?" So you could third party it. This other couple said this. I was really glad that, I was surprised that they didn't know that. Is this a conversation we could have? So look for your champions, feature their behavior, find out their story, and then use it to either to in your ongoing conversations too.
And Mark, just a last question here, maybe.
Sure.
Something I always like to ask folks. Is there, if people only could start with one thing to follow all this process that you've talked
Yeah.
about and get their minds in the right place to embrace this approach, what would that one thing be? What's the best place to start?
What's coming up in me right now is work on your self-talk. You're not begging, you're not snoring, you're not arm twisting, you're not mugging or hitting people over the head and grabbing their wallets. If you're in medical care, you're not doing a walletectomy. It's not surgical. You're helping people. And so it could be talking to the donors that keep giving and just saying, "We're so grateful. Love to know what keeps you coming back." And or reconnecting with your mission. If you can walk around or Zoom around, go through a Zoom meeting, somehow reconnect with the change that you're making in the world and reinvigorate yourself. I think that would be the one thing I'd suggest today.
Thank you so much, Mark, for all this. Really loved it. Really, really great. And I want to thank everybody who joined us live. Thank you to those who are watching this later. It's like everything else Mark just said, it's shareable. So I hope you'll share it with colleagues in the office who maybe haven't had this experience and need to think about it with you, and make sure that they're not conducting walletectomies. And I want to also ask all of you to make sure that you fill out the survey at the end. And if you'd like, join us on Fridays when we drop our podcast, the PM podcast. You'll find that one very interesting. This week we interview a lot of the fellows and the honorees from the Association for Healthcare Philanthropy this week. So you'll get a kind of a taste of all of that in the episode of the podcast coming up. And of course, next Tuesday, we have our weekly Frontlines of Social Good show, which covers topical issues in the sector. And then next Thursday, we have a session in this series, How to Raise for CA Free Credit, with Brantley Boyette, which is all about AI and planned giving. So make sure you sign up for that. We'll look forward to seeing you for all of those. So until next time, take care. Thanks again, Mark.